Yo YouTube, this is my video for Thursday the 20th of June, which is today. My stats for today are as follows. Based on an average fuel price of 14.55 pence per mile, I have driven 351 miles today, 351. I've worked for 11 3/4 hours, and I've done 3 CX jobs and earned gross £270, 270. So of that, I have paid £51 and 7 pence for fuel, and so my net income today, after taking into account my fuel, is £219, 219. If you are not interested in or a fan of a driver's view perspective on things that go wrong and my rambling style, then maybe give this video a miss, because my first job, I feel, requires a step-by-step recounting of what happened from my perspective. And again, to remind you, the reason why I do that sometimes is I want to sort of put you in the shoes of a driver who's got to deal with issues that go wrong. I'm not saying that I'm particularly good or particularly bad at dealing with these things. It's just what happens, and I'll tell you about as much detail as I can remember in the order that it happened, and I will forget stuff because a lot went on. So I had a job this morning booked in already, going from Hull Beach, which is near Spalding, to Chesterfield. It was due to be picked up any time between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and I said that I'd be there for 9. So I left the house at 8:30. It was around about 26 minutes away, about 13 dead miles to get to the pickup, and it was a small van job, and I had put a bid on. It was £75 for 78 loaded miles. So I left the house at 8:30. This is all booked in from last night, and then I arrived on site at 9 o'clock. And my first issue I had was when I arrived on the site. It was actually a building site. It wasn't clear from the address who I was going to see. So I did have very scant details. So there's a company name, and then the address was the site, but it wasn't the site manager that I was going to. So the company name was, I now know, a contractor's firm working on site. So I drove up, and I'd been given by the shipper a sort of document, a digital document on my phone, which detailed the items that I was meant to collect, with some reference numbers. Not that it made much difference. And I also had 3 named people with their contact numbers, and it said to call the people on site when you get on site. So I arrived. The first thing I did was I thought, well, I'll go to the site manager's office, because I parked up there, the door was open, went to the site manager's office, and the first thing I tried to do was to find out where the company was that was on site. And the site manager office was empty. I saw a guy who's working there. I just said to him, "Oh, by the way," I asked him, "Can you tell me where this company might be?" And he sort of took me around the other side of the building, through the site, and then pointed at a cabin. So I went to this cabin. I thought, excellent, that was really helpful. In the cabin there's a couple of guys chatting away, So I went in and asked them if they knew about this company, and they said they didn't know about it, but if I went back to the site office and spoke to the site manager, that he could help me. So fair enough, I went back to the site office, but I knew on my way back that it was going to be empty because I'd just been there. But they gave me a name of a person. I think I can say names because for first names. The first name of this person was Craig. So I had to go and find Craig, is what they said. And so I went round, and as I was walking back to the site office, a guy with two other guys was walking back to the site office, and he had a sort of a tie on and a shirt and a high vis. And I said, "Oh, are you the site manager? Are you Craig?" I think this is like, I'm looking for Craig. Is that you? And he said he was. So my first impression here, I have to be honest, is he seems quite grumpy, and he was obviously in the middle of something else. Obviously didn't know what I was there for. So I sort of verbally said to him, "Oh, I've come to collect some stuff for this company's name." And he said, "I don't know anything about it." And he said, "You could go and check behind that skip." So there's a big green skip, and I went and had a look. And behind that skip, there was a pile of items that were sort of stored behind the skip. And initially, I only saw one pile of items, and some of the items were labelled with the name of the company that I was to pick up from, and other items were a different company. And they were quite weathered. They'd been obviously out for a while. Some of it was in packaging, half opened. Some of it was completely free from any packaging. So it was a selection of stuff that could have been the stuff that I put on. So if we go back to the invoice, I looked at the invoice and the instruction, and it was items like a clamp of a certain size and let's say an air compressor with certain dimensions, and stuff that I kind of don't know what those things are. I kind of can guess what a clamp looks like, but this is a small clamp, and I can see like a big industrial sized thing. It could be a clamp, but it could equally be just a joint between two pipes. The thing just to give you some context, the company I was working for was a gas utilities supplier, so it was all about pipe work of various kinds. So I found the stuff that was labelled with their name on. I took a photo, put it on I texted the shipper back and said, "This is what I can see. Is this the items that I'm meant to have?" But then before I did that, I thought, right, rather than me ring the shipper, let me do the thing I've been told to do. Let me ring the three numbers, or the numbers on the invoice. So I had to get my phone out, write down the numbers, and then ring each number in turn. The first number I rang, which I thought was the most obvious, was a guy called Steve, who was the engineer, and he didn't answer. Called him again, no answer. So then I rang the second. These are all mobile numbers. Then I rang the second mobile number, which was somebody who had the same sort of start to their mobile number as Steve, but was a lady's name, I think Catherine, and she was, I guessed, an office-based person. And rang her number, no answer. Went straight to answer phone. And then the middle number on the sheet said Craig, and before his name was the initials S.M. So I assumed, as it was correctly, that this Craig was the same Craig that was the site manager, who I'd just spoken to, who didn't know anything about the delivery. So there's no point me ringing that number because I've already spoken to him, which I thought I had, but I hadn't got his surname. So I couldn't have been absolutely sure it was the same Craig, but it seemed to me very likely. So then I rang the shipper and said, "I've got some items that I've got their name on. I'm not sure what I'm meant to take. Here's a photo. Can you double check what I'm meant to take?" And I could handball on some items. There were some things that were easy enough to hold. And then I happened to see behind this pile another pallet of big pipe work and boxes. And on the pallet, it was strapped to the pallet. It had been opened and it's all weathered and sort of wet, dried cardboard and opened up plastic, but it was all still attached to the pallet. So to me, it looked like that could be part of this load as well. So I took a photo of that, and get it to my shipper. Now, I could not lift that pallet. I tried lifting it, but it was way too heavy. And I could lift the other pallet that was there and the other items. So I put everything on board. There's about 6 items that I thought, these are all labelled by this company, so let's put them on board. And there were the other items that weren't labelled for the company, I left. About this time, I had a call back from my first number, which was the engineer. And the engineer said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but I'm pretty sure he said something like, we've already collected that thing. I read out to him what we were meant to collect from the actual sheet. Just read out these items. And he said, oh, we've already collected those. And then as I was talking to him, the shipper was ringing me back. So I quickly got off that phone and then answered the shipper. And the shipper said to me, another lady, who was Sarah, was going to call me in a minute and talk me through what I was meant to take on board. Because he explained to me he didn't know what the items looked like that I was meant to take. Although he was on site with the customer, the actual company name, so he could sort of get hold of someone. So I waited for a few minutes, got a call from Sarah, and Sarah was talking me through, describing this machine. I said, it's got red writing sprayed on it with reference numbers in it. Here's the reference number. And I could not see anywhere anything that looked like she was describing. And the pallet I had seen, I couldn't load up on the van. I had a quick look in there. There's no sprayed numbers on that at all. There's printed numbers, but nothing any approaching the number she was giving me. So basically, I was not at all sure that was the right pallet, and it was unclear. I think she was assuming that it'd be obvious. The thing that I was going to be taking would be obvious. It had this big number, red number printed on it. So I couldn't find it. I couldn't see it anywhere else along the site. There were other items, but they weren't sort of to do with gas pipes. They were just sort of metal work and brickwork and stuff piled up. So I did have a quick look around. There's one of the pallets, but it wasn't sprayed with any numbers. So I just had to wait, and then she said, have you rung Craig, the site manager? And I said, well, I've spoken to someone called Craig, who's the site manager, but he didn't know anything about this. And this is where it got a bit weird for me. She said to me, I've just spoken to him. He's told me that he knows what's going on, or words to that effect. If you give him a call, he's expecting your call. So I thought, well, maybe at this point, maybe the Craig who I spoke to in person wasn't the same Craig that was on the paperwork. So it's possible, but a long shot. So I missed out something, by the way. While I was waiting at one point, and when I found before I had the conversation with the shipper and with Sarah, I was waiting for a few minutes to get some guidance, and I thought I'd found the pallets that I needed. So I then, when I couldn't lift it up, went to try and find a forklift driver to get that pallet on my van, and there was nobody around. I walked around the building site. There weren't people around, but they were busy doing stuff. You know, there were labourers doing. I saw about 3 people. One was filling a concrete lorry, and 2 of them were with a big digger, sort of doing some work, and I just couldn't disturb them. And everyone else was sort of on the housing estate side. So there was nobody around I could actually get the thing forklift on. And if I had found someone, they'd have been, I'm sure, too busy. So anyway, I was completely ignored by everyone. There was no one there to ignore me, but it was very isolating from a driver's point of view. Thinking, I'm not meant to be on this site. I'm just a courier trying to collect something. No one knows anything about it, both on site or off site, and the shipper doesn't know anything about it either. So, go back to the conversation with Sarah. At this point, I was thinking, she's saying ring Craig, who's on this paperwork. I'm pretty sure I've spoken to him, and he was not very helpful to me the first time I spoke to him. And now she's saying that Craig's expecting my call and he's going to be helpful. So I was getting a little bit apprehensive about whether I got the right Craig or not. And if it was the same Craig, I thought he was lying to her, because he was not at all helpful when I spoke to him. So I called the number and said, who's Craig. We got hold of him, and it was the same guy. It was the site manager who I'd spoken to at the start, who then came over to me, and I said, "I need some help with this. I'm not a gas engineer. I'm just a courier. I don't know what I'm meant to take." And his response was, "I'm not a gas engineer either." So he came over, and he was a little bit less grumpy now when he was with me. But his response was to get on the phone to someone that he referred to as Kat. So I'm assuming this is the Catherine who I tried to ring originally. And he was videoing the items on both that I put in my van and that I'd left on the ground. And she was saying to him, "Nope, we need that still, we need that one, we need that." So everything I put on my van, they still needed on site. So he didn't know, this is the site manager, where the stuff was or what it was I was meant to have on. I'd obviously told him the name of this thing, but he was equally as not able to understand what it was. So me giving him the name of this item, let's call it a compressor. It wasn't, just something else. That he wasn't able to locate that in his head where that might be. So he wandered off, saying, "I'll come back in a minute." And as he was wandering off, 2 lorries came in, and he was sort of talking to them. And I was then left there, sitting there in my van, and this is what I went through my head. I thought, right, you want, as in me, I want to be helpful here, and I want to resolve this situation without causing anyone any extra grief. But there's literally nothing I can do now except go back to the shipper and update them. So I texted the shipper what was happening. I was waiting for the site manager, made contact with him, and I was waiting for him. And it was at this point that about 5 minutes later he said, "Have you got anywhere?" I said, "No, I'm still waiting." That he called me. We had a brief conversation, and basically it turns out from this conversation that the shipper didn't know anything about the items because he's just a shipper, like I'm just a courier. He was asked by the customer to provide a small van, and he was told, that's what, given the invoice, that's it. So he had no extra information to give me. When I say invoice, I mean this sort of the note that was on the digital note to tell me what the goods were. So he was just given that by the customer, and then he passed it on. So he was very pleasant and tried his best to help, but he didn't have any answers for me. So at this point in time, I sat in my van and I thought, right, I could ring Steve now, the engineer, and just say what's going on. But I thought, no, it's not my job. I can't do that. I'm just going to confuse matters. I could try calling Catherine again, but again, that's just going to confuse matters. There's lots of people now who are now busying themselves around to sort this out. The shipper's doing it, the site manager's doing it, and they're all having conversations. So I just sat there and I made sure the shipper knew what I was doing, what I had done. And I did feel like in this situation, as a driver, unless you can communicate really clearly, everyone around you, like the people in the office, the site manager, potentially the shipper, they think you're incompetent. Or they think that you're not trying. And I desperately am trying my best to resolve the situation, so that I don't have to have these phone calls. But I just had to at this point give up and say I can't do anything else. I just have to think about. And this is how I resolved it. I thought, right, who do you work for? I work for the shipper. So I've got to make sure the shipper knows exactly what I've done and what I'm doing, and then anything else that happens has to be done through them. So I just sat in my van, and then what happened next? I was on the phone to the shipper about 5 minutes later again. Well, it might be 10. Time is kind of irrelevant here. Some time later, that reminds me. I think it's James from Freddie Fletcher does it. Well, I've seen other videos where they have the Simpsons sort of an eternity later kind of thing. Imagine that now in my video. Sometime later. I can't do the accent, but if you've seen these videos, you know what I mean. If you've seen the Simpsons, you know what I mean. So sometime later, I then got a call from the shipper who explained to me they've now worked out that they have got the item. It was collected on Friday. And then at this point, the site manager came back, and he confirmed with me, yes, it's not here. No, sorry, I've got it wrong. Sorry. The site manager came back to me, and he told me, as I was on the phone to the shipper, who didn't know what's going on, the site manager told me it was collected on Friday by somebody else. So I was already on the phone, and I said to the shipper, did you hear that? He said, no. I said, I've just been told by the site manager that the item was collected on Friday. And he said, right, I'll get back to you. And he then hung up. So the shipper then went back, I assume, to his customer to double check. So I waited a bit longer. Site manager now is I would say, a bit more human with me. He said, do you want me to sign anything? I will. I said, that's great, thank you, but I don't think I will need anything signed. And he went off. That's my last interaction with him. So now I was waiting, wondering, well, what's going to happen now then? Obviously I'm not doing this job, but what's going to happen now? And then the shipper rang back about some time later, wasn't too long, and he said to me, yeah, confirmed, they found the item in the yard now, it was collected on Friday, and he explained to me that what had happened was the company had got a subby to do the job, and that subby hadn't returned paperwork to the office or whatever they need to do, so they didn't know from the office point of view that it had been returned, even though it wasn't in the yard. So I'm not blaming the subby, that's what I was told. So without missing a beat, the shipper then said, I'll pay you the full amount for waiting, and sort of pay you full amount for this, plus add £25 on for your waiting and the sort of hassle. So I thought that was really generous, really fair, and I was really pleased. I'd been on site for an hour by this point, so I feel that was really good of them. I would have accepted just having, you know, the job paid that I was due to do, which was £75. But he was generous. I think he was generous, and I appreciated that gesture. And I did say to him at this point, it's really frustrating because I'm trying to convince you that I'm not incompetent, but you know, you're not on site, so I'm just got to go with what I say. Anyway, so that's the end of that story. I then drove home, basically home again, half an hour, not quite. I went to a car park, and then I was looking at jobs on the way, a few bids on, but I was in a bit of a bad area for work. The closest area really would have been King's Lynn. It's not prolific for work. I did put a bid on a King's Lynn to Birmingham job, but didn't get it. And so I went back to a car park, and then I was bidding on other jobs, and then I got a call at 5 minutes to 11. So I left the site just after 10, and within about an hour or so I had a second job. And that second job was a Peterborough to Nottingham job, and it was I thought that it would be good because I was about half an hour, 40 minutes from Peterborough, and it would have got me into a decent area for further work, with some of the day left to go. So what were the jobs? I was 24 miles away from the pickup, about 40 minutes. I arrived at 11:40 on site, and the job I was doing was for a short wheelbase van, and it was 56 loaded miles, and I bid £60, 60 for that. And so I arrived, and as I arrived there was no response to my ringing the bell at Goods Inn, so I tried a couple of times, then went to the reception, rang their bell. The guy came down and said what it was there for, and he said that the storeman was off site at the moment. He said he was getting some milk, so I said I'm happy to wait, be in my van, but can I use your toilet first? So I used the toilet, then went in my van. So I waited there for 40 minutes before I got off site, and I left at 12:20. whether I should ask for waiting time, but I just really couldn't be bothered with it. I couldn't be bothered with the conversation. The people were pleasant, the shipper was giving the job, seemed pleasant. I thought, just take this one, take this hit, and just get on with the job. I will share at the end of this my thinking today about how to treat shippers, which I sort of was part of my thinking about that decision. But let me move on. So I got that delivered. It's about an hour and 20 minutes to Nottingham, and I got that delivered. And when I arrived at the other end, it's delivering between one branch of this water treatment place or water services place and to another branch in Nottingham. And when I arrived, again, I rang the bell, no response to the gate. There was a guy in the yard who eventually came and opened the gate for me. He then offloaded me, but he wasn't going to do it because he said I've come to the wrong address. But he checked the paperwork that I had, and the paperwork on my CX and on the paperwork I had, the address was his address. So he accepted that I'd come to the right place as far as he was concerned. He'd have to come and collect it from him. It's like down the road. It's like another depot down the road. So he was good enough to take it off me, not waste any of my time, saying go off somewhere else. So then I was parked outside of that unit on the industrial estate, and I went there. It's telling me to come off here and then back on again. That's not what I want to do. I'll stay on this motorway. So I was looking for work, and it wasn't. I had to get myself. I had a bit of a quandary. I wanted to earn about £140 if I could, ideally. And I thought, well, two £70 jobs or two £60 jobs would be good, or one sort of £120 job. I wasn't going to get the whole 140 today. But I thought the difficulty with the long job is that I'm going to end up miles away from home, and I'm not going to get home tonight. Probably about this time I did win a job for the morning, so quite early today I've got a job for tomorrow morning booked in. So I got a job in the end. I got the call for it at 1:53, and it was a job going from Nottingham. I was very close to it. I was NG4 postcode was my drop off, NG42 something, and my big pickup was NG44 something. So I looked at the I got a call from the shipper, and he said, how far away are you? So I said, give me the postcode and I will let you know. I am in the NG4 area. And he said, I haven't got the postcode yet or the address, I'll just call the customer. So he said, you're going to get it, but I just said to call the customer. So he called the customer, called me back very quickly and gave me the postcode. And I worked out at this point I was 10 minutes away from his pickup. So I said, I'll make my way there, and then hopefully by that point they've got the actual name of the company or name of the address, because he only had the postcode at this point. So I drove the 10 minutes across town to NG44 and arrived, and there was no updated CX. So I rang the shipper, or I texted the shipper, I said, I'm on the postcode now, what are your details? And he gave me the address by text, which is a residential address. So I wanted to have it on CX before I started doing anything else. So I did make my way towards the door, and as I was doing that, it was about a minute's drive away. As I did that, it came through CX. So I was given at the door a package to deliver to Uxbridge, and I knew time would be tight. So did I tell what I bid for this? I can't remember. I didn't tell what I bid for it. I bid for a small van job. It's 128 loaded miles from Nottingham to Uxbridge. I bid £110, 110. and I was 3 miles away from the pickup point in the end. So I arrived there at 2:10, got the package, got the lady to sign my own pod. The shipper had said, can I create a pod? Which I said I would do. And then I got my van and sat down for Uxbridge. And it was saying it was going to be 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So, which would have been about quarter to, about 5 to 5 was the time that I was shooting. I went maybe quarter to 5. And so I texted the shipper to say my ETA is going to be 5:30, because I just knew that traffic would get bad towards London. And I thought, well, if I send that text, if it's a problem, he'll let me know before I leave. But if he doesn't get back to me, I think other than yes, it's alright, I'll assume they'll be there. So I've made my way as quickly as possible towards Uxbridge. On my journey, quite early on, I got the full postcode of the delivery point, and I got a name and a number for the person I'm delivering to. But I actually had that information already, apart from the phone number, on my package. So I didn't need that to get started. Yeah, so I then drove down to Uxbridge. I was now getting quite tired. It's quite common in the afternoon. It's about 2 o'clock. Getting quite tired now for a couple of hours. It also has been very, as you can see from the weather, it's very sunny and bright today, so that might have something to do with it. Anyway, I got stuck on some traffic on the M1, as is often the case. Other than that, I got to Uxbridge at 5:10. I'd rang the customer half an hour before, she was there, so I knew it was going to be a problem. When I arrived, I rang her again and said I was at the back door. Anything of note to say about this is it was one of those CCTV controlled car parks, and it says notice everywhere saying you have to be registered to park here. So I did say to the lady, do I need to give you my registration to register? And she said no, you don't need to. So I'm expecting to get a ticket, a fine, but I have got a signed proof of delivery note with dated and timed with her name on that proves I was delivering a parcel. I was only there in total for 5 minutes, or maybe 10 minutes at most by the time I sort of driven off site. So if I do get a ticket, I will just explain that I was delivering and provide the evidence. I shouldn't have to pay it. I think that her answer about you don't have to register, I think, was probably misleading. I bet you do have to register if you're visiting. I bet there's a on site for each company that's on that site. I bet they have some sort of pad that you have to put your registration number in for. But we shall see. Yeah, so I want to talk briefly, if I can, about how I see this job in relation to dealing with shippers. Now, it's not going to be anything particularly earth-shattering. It's just a reflection of what I was thinking today, and kind of set my mindset today about how I was going to do my job. Now, I'll try and describe it succinctly, so hopefully it makes sense. It's just really this. When you do this job day in, day out, it can be very tempting just to treat each job like it's just another job. And this is from a driver's point of view. As a driver, if you're doing 3 or 4 jobs a day, most of your day is spent just driving, and then in between it you're doing some sort of communication with a shipper or a customer. And most of the day is that you're on your own, you don't talk to anyone. And sometimes it can be quite stressful if things are going wrong, or traffic, or you're not winning jobs. But I think that I always try to remember that every single job that I do is important to somebody else. It's more important to somebody else than it is to me. and I want to make sure that I value how they value a job as much as they do. And I think it's most easy to think about that when we think about it in terms of the shipper experience you have. So there are, I would say, for example, driver shippers or small one-man band people who give work out. They tend to be the most invested in having a high quality job done and finding high quality drivers. And so I feel probably for them, when I'm doing a job for them, I need to remember it's at this moment of time, that's the most important thing in their life, is I do this job correctly, and I'm responsible for that. So it feels like a big responsibility to do that properly. So I feel a sense of I want to put in the best every time for those sort of jobs. So by that I mean I want to show gratitude, I want to be appreciative of having the job in the first place, I want to be reliable, I want to be able to communicate and be trustworthy, I want to be able to do the things that give the shipper that I'm dealing with the confidence that they don't have to worry about anything. And different shippers have different ways in which they need that confirmed. Some shippers, you need to call them and just say, I'm here now, I've got this, here's a photo. Well, it would be very prescriptive. I don't mind that, as long as I know that's what they want. Some shippers will just say, just use CX. I know you're there, tracking you, it's fine. So there's a variety of ways in which you can, as a driver, prove to the shipper that you're doing a job how they would want you to do it. And part of it is how you talk to them as well. So I try to remember that this is a privilege to do this job. You know, there are things that are bad about any job. There are things that are difficult. You know, and I won't get through all those now, but it's just common sense that not all jobs are perfect. But this feels like a genuine privilege to be a self-employed same-day courier. It's an amazing job to do, and it's not just about how much you earn. It's a whole lot of things about being free, in control, being left alone, just get on with it. So it suits me, and it suits a lot of people that I know. But when you then think about other shippers, there are other shippers I've come across who, frankly, have not had a clue about what they're doing. And I would probably summarise these as companies that are big enough to employ other people, but they tend to go down the route of stack them high, sell them cheap. So they don't look at quality, they look at quantity. And these people tend to lose, I'm guessing a bit, but I'm giving you an example of why I think the problem is. Some of these companies would tend to lose staff from the office quite quickly. They tend to have lowly trained and knowledgeable people in the office. Maybe their first job out of university or out of school. Maybe they have never been a driver, don't understand what they're doing. So there are companies that could be quite big that have a high churn rate of employees, and those employees who are representing the company, they don't know, or less than that, care about what's going on. And really, as a driver, when you deal with those companies, it's very hard to treat them the same, because they don't care, so why should you care about their job? And it's things like not putting the correct dimensions on, or not putting the correct details on about a company or person's name for collection or address. You know, trying to chip you down when you put a bid on a bidding platform and they try to chip you down further. There's lots of things that kind of highlight, oh, these are this, that's what company. You know, when they put pays £30, pays £25, well, obviously well, good luck with that, but that's not for me. But anyway, I'm drifting a bit. The point is that there are some shippers that, from a driver's perspective, are just not very good. They are not. I would describe it as they don't share my values, and I would treat their customers respectfully and politely, and I would do my best to resolve any issues. But at the end of the day, I might not go as far as I would do with a driver shipper. And I might be making sure I definitely get paid the right amount if things go wrong, because they're the sort of companies that will try and not pay you waiting time, not pay you handballing time if they put it on there. So you've got to be a bit more firm with those companies and a bit more be aware of them. And then there's, I would say, you can have a big company, like there's other big companies that are national, and they can be really good. They often pay on time, and they often have, because they know what they're doing, they have some good information. I like companies that are quite strict about what they expect from their drivers, because then I know where I stand. I know that taking a photo for me is, I do that every time. Strapping down loads, do it every time. Uploading a pod to the system every time. Those things are all things I do every job. When they define that and ask for it, have you got boots on? Have you got high vis? Well, of course I have. But obviously they have to do that. Have you got your ID with you if you need ID? Because sometimes it says in their notes, needs an ID, and they get bids for people who haven't got ID with them. So I like shippers, no matter what size they are, that are quite clear with their expectations. Could say it's strict, but I think it's just better communication. So I know where I stand with them. And again, I would then do my very best to resolve any issues on site without having to go back to them, or I would keep in contact with them. So today, and obviously, sometimes you're only going by a very short conversation. So in my second job today, the company I was working for, the person who, literally the reason why I didn't ask for a waiting time was because I was in that mindset today of just provide a great service. It's about customer service, this. But also, the person that spoke to me was friendly and cheerful. And they gave me the job, and when I rang them to say I was waiting, I thought, just be friendly and cheerful. That's what you got to do. That'll save you money in the long run. So these shippers that are trawling the bottom of the barrel when it comes to quality, I think you're missing a business opportunity here. If you are polite and friendly, you'll get breaks, you'll get drivers being resolving problems for you, or they're not charging you that much for waiting or things. I mean, obviously, not all drivers will be the same, because you've got as much a mix of driver personalities and characters as you have as shippers. So you can say there's equally bad drivers that are good drivers. But there is a business model there where you're clear with your expectations as a shipper, you're polite and you're friendly, and I bet you make more money, you get better drivers doing that than by just doing something else. But obviously we don't all see the world in the same way, so there'll be people who only look at money, and money is the only thing they look at, and genuinely I don't think that's my biggest priority. I have to have money to live, I have to have a certain amount of money to make a living, but I'd much rather be thought of as being a nice, kind person and earn a bit less than a hard ass that earns every single penny. It just isn't my character. And a last point on that, which is nothing I came up with today, I was thinking about people being nice and people being nasty to other people. And I think there's a misconception that it's easy to be nice, that just people are nice. I don't think that's the case. I think people who are nice are choosing to be nice. They're making a decision to be nice. And if they chose to, they can just be nasty and horrible as much as anyone else can do. They just think that's the wrong thing to do. So it's easy to be miserable and have a go at someone, blame someone else for mistakes. That's easy. It's not easy to be nice, particularly if you're struggling with your own issues. So I'm reminding myself here that anyone that's nice and friendly, they're putting in effort to do that, and we should recognise that, be appreciative of it. And the people that are not bothering doing that, obviously, are the opposite. They can't be bothered to try to be nice to other people, no matter how you feel. I hope that makes some sense. It's just something else I thought about today, and I was thinking about, am I a nice person? I was thinking about it. And I was thinking, well, not really. I have to try to be nice. You know, I deliberately try to do things that I think are nice, and it isn't always the case. And I thought, well, isn't that the whole point? That is what being nice is about. It's trying to be nice. You're not just born saying and doing right all the time. You have to put effort in and do that. So I shouldn't feel ashamed about having to put effort in to be nice, rather than just being, in fact, a nice person naturally. Anyway, that'll be it. I did warn you at the start of this video, it might not be for you. So if you still want listening to this, thank you for that. I'm bringing to a close now. I've got a short day tomorrow. I'm hoping to get one job back from where I'm going to end up, and then that'll be it. And then that's the end of my week. So I hope that you are being successful, however you choose to define that phrase for yourself. Thank you very much for staying with me for this video. I hope it made some sense. Farewell, friends.